I'm Meoang, and welcome back to my beginner's guide to Starcraft 2. Today we'll be discussing the Protoss tech tree and all of Protoss's units. Protoss tech is very similar to Terran tech. They have 3 production buildings and a few buildings that allow new units and upgrades. When the game starts, the only unit you can produce is the probe. You can construct nexi, assimilators, pylons, gateways, and forges, but keep in mind that all Protoss structures besides the nexus and assimilator need a pylon nearby. That means you'll have to build a pylon first if you want a gateway or a forge. Forges allow you to research upgrades for Protoss ground units. There are damage upgrades, armor upgrades, and shield upgrades, with 3 levels of each. Once the forge is constructed, you can build Photon Cannons. Photon Cannons are static defense that attack both air and ground. Gateways produce ground basic units for Protoss. After research, they can be changed into warp gates, which allow these basic units to be warped in at any location powered by a pylon. Initially, a gateway can only produce zealots. Zealots are ground basic units that have decent defense and decent damage, although they can only attack ground units at melee range. After research, they gain the ability to charge at enemy units. Once the gateway is constructed, you can build a Cybernetics Core. The Cybernetics Core enables the production of sentries, stalkers, and adepts from gateways, Mothership Cores from the Nexus, and also has some upgrades to research. This is where you research warp gates. Along with that, you can research 3 levels of upgrades for air units, including both attack and defense. Sentries are low damage and health spellcaster units. They can attack air and ground. Their first spell is Force Field, which creates a barrier that cannot be passed by ground units, but can be crushed by massive ground units. Their second spell is Guardian Shield, which creates a large shield around the sentry that protects units inside of it. The last spell is Hallucination, which creates a fake version of any Protoss unit. Stalkers are general all-around units. They have decent damage, speed, and health. They also do bonus damage to armored units. They can attack both ground and air and can learn to teleport short distances. Adepts do very high damage against light units, but can only attack ground units in a short range. They have an ability called Psionic Transfer, which creates a little ghost of themselves. After a short time, the adept will move to wherever the ghost is. The Mothership Core is a flying utility unit that you can only have one of at a time. It has 3 abilities. The first ability turns a pylon into a static defense structure similar to Photon Cannons for a short time. The second slows down enemy movement speed and attack speed in a targeted area, and the third teleports the Mothership Core and all units around it to a target nexus. After a Cybernetics Core is constructed, you can build a Twilight Council, Robotics Facilities, and Stargates. We'll finish up with the gateway units first, and then move on to the other production buildings. The Twilight Council is a building that has research upgrades for gateway units. The first is the charge ability for Zealots, which allows them to charge at enemies when they attack. The second is Blink for Stalkers, which allows them to instantly teleport a short distance with a small cooldown. The last one is Resonating Glaives, which increases the attack speed of Adepts. The Twilight Council allows the construction of Twilight Archives and Dark Shrines. The Twilight Archive allows you to produce High Templars from gateways and also allows you to research the Psionic Storm ability for High Templars. High Templars are a ground spellcaster unit with 2 spells. The first spell is Feedback, which drains the energy from a unit and also does damage equal to the amount of energy drained. The second is Psionic Storm, which does damage over time in a large targeted area for a short amount of time. The Dark Shrine simply allows Dark Templars to be produced from gateways. The Dark Templar is a permanently cloaked ground melee unit. They have low defense but do very high damage. Any 2 Templars, either High Templars or Dark Templars, can be combined to form an Archon. An Archon has very high damage, especially to biological units, and their attack does damage in a small area. They have almost no life but have very high shields. They can hit both air and ground units. The Robotics Facility is where Protoss robotic units come from. These units have both good utility and fill important needs for a Protoss army. Once you have a Robotics Facility, you can build a Robotics Bay. Initially, the Robotics Facility can produce Observers, Warp Prisms, and Immortals. Observers are permanently cloaked flying units that have detection. They're used for keeping tabs on your enemy's progress as well as detecting cloaked units when necessary. The Warp Prism is the Protoss dropping unit. It can pick up ground units and drop them at a new location. It also has an ability called Phasing Mode, which creates a small area for warps from warp gates. The Immortal has very high defense and decent damage, but can only attack ground units. They also do bonus damage to armored enemies. They have an ability called Barrier that allows them to absorb up to 200 damage for 2 seconds. The Robotics Bay allows the production of Colossi and Disruptors, and also has research upgrades for Robotics Facility units. The first upgrade is Gravitic Boosters, which increases the movement speed of observers. The second is Gravitic Drive, which increases the movement speed of warp prisms. The last upgrade is Extended Thermal Lance, which increases the attack range of Colossi. This last upgrade is incredibly important when using Colossi. Colossi are massive ground units. They have decent defense and do damage in a very large area at a very long range. They can walk up and down cliffs. Disruptors are another ground spellcaster unit. They have one ability called Purification Nova, which creates a small controllable ball that explodes after a short time. The Stargate allows for the production of most of Protoss' flying units. When a Stargate is built, it allows the fleet beacon to be constructed. Initially, the Stargate can produce Phoenixes, Oracles, and Void Rays. Phoenixes are flying units that can only attack other air units. They do bonus damage to light enemies and have an ability called Gravitron Beam that lifts a ground unit into the air and stuns them. Oracles are a flying spellcaster unit. Their first spell is called Revelation, which causes enemy units and structures to grant vision for a short while. The second is called Stasis Ward, which leaves a small mine that stuns enemies when it explodes. Enemies in stasis cannot be harmed or moved. The last spell is Pulsar Beam, which drains energy from the Oracle but allows it to attack ground units. This ability makes the Oracle incredibly effective at early game harassment. The Void Ray is a flying unit that can attack both air and ground units. It does bonus damage against armored units, and also does more damage the longer it attacks. The Void Ray has an ability called Prismatic Alignment, which makes the Void Ray do even more damage to armored units for a short time. Once a fleet beacon is constructed, the Stargate can produce Tempests and Carriers. The fleet beacon also has some upgrades for Stargate units and allows the Mothership Core to be upgraded to a mothership. The first upgrade is Anion Pulse Crystals, which increases the attack range of Phoenixes. The second upgrade is Gravitron Catapult, which makes carriers launch interceptors faster. The Tempest is a flying massive unit that attacks air and ground units at a huge range. They have a high amount of life and a very high amount of damage. They do bonus damage to flying massive units. The Carrier is another flying massive unit that attacks by spawning tiny ships called Interceptors. Interceptors can attack both air and ground and do a ton of damage when massed up. A Carrier can produce additional Interceptors a few at a time and can also release all of their Interceptors at a target area. The Mothership has the same abilities as the Mothership Core, but with two differences. First, the Mothership has much better defense, and second, the Mothership cloaks all allied structures and units around it. The Mothership can really help close out a game when you have a powerful late-game Protoss army. And that's every Protoss unit and structure. These last few videos took a surprising amount of time, so thanks for staying tuned. The next video will go over control groups and then hotkeys. Thanks for watching guys, and good luck learning your race.